What's your story?
To my younger self, what's your
To
story?
my younger self.
To 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 my younger self. To my younger self.
To my younger self. What's your story? To my younger self. What's your story?
Well, hello and good morning, everybody. How are you doing? It is wonderful to see you. My name is Zoe Baraka. Of course, the show is To My Younger Self. This is a platform where we tell stories from our past that's supposed to propel us into the future. There is a saying, if you don't know where you came from, you cannot know where you're going. And so these are not stories of, just us going, woe is me and that happened to me. No, these are stories of nostalgia. They're also stories that help us see who we are, where we are now, so we can move forward into the future. And so you're welcome. Listen, where are you watching us from? On Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter. We are live with the Indomitable Yaw Nsarkoh. You do not want to miss it. And so listen, go ahead and kind of share, tell your friends something amazing is about to happen on To My Younger Self, and you want them to join. If you happen to have enemies, I know you don't, but just in case you do, tell your enemies to join too. You know why? Because they might end up being your friend, and that's what we want. Okay, and so we greet you wherever you are. Thank you for joining us, like we do in grand To My Younger Self fashion. We're always greeting people in different dialects, scattered all across Africa. We're gonna do that now, and you can go into the comment section and greet us in your mother tongue, your father tongue, your native dialect. We want to hear from you wherever you are in Africa, or if you live outside of Africa but you are of African descent and you can speak any language, please greet us, okay? Alrighty, barakada zua to you, sandunku da zua ya de kakwana lafia. I really hope you slept well. I just greeted you in Hausa. Ya ken tuma fudowela. Tipose wanambaraka. It is wonderful to see you. I just greeted you in Kosal. Ansuma to you if you speak Wale or Dagbani. It is wonderful to see you. Ndina to you, Wezo, Leke, Efwa. It is good to see you. If you speak Ewe, people in the Volta region, scattered all around the world, really, we greet you. It is wonderful to see you. Etiseng, Akwaba, Umuntinten, Yamawachi. We greet you. I just greeted you in different variations of the Akan dialect. Thank you so much for joining us. Sawubonani to you. If you speak Zulu, how are you? It is wonderful to see you. Mbela to you. Ibio Kibari to you. If you speak Moshi, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us. Te Oyo Teng, keepers of the land of Accra. Thank you for joining us. If you speak Ga, Oje Ko to you, I greet you. Come on in. Lale to you. If you speak Chadian Arabic, how are you? From the bottom of Africa, what's up? It is wonderful to see you. Intuamafe to you. Thank you for joining us. Salam alaikum. Of course, if you speak Arabic, more than half of Africans actually do speak Arabic. I don't know if you knew that. Anyway, so it is really not a religious language. It is just a language. We just wanted to throw that out there. Ekaro to you, ekabo to you. It is wonderful to see you. Nagadef to you if you speak Wolof. And also I just greeted you in Yoruba to all of our Nigerian friends. Jambo, habari gani, habari yawe subwe. Yaure to you. Karibu sana. If you speak Swahili, I just kind of threw all kinds of languages at you there. It is wonderful, or rather, all kinds of greetings to you there. Kotong to you, Amohelang to you. If you speak Sesotho, Botswana, how are you doing? It is wonderful wonderful to see you. Thank you always for your support. Inyasi to you if you speak Bisa, of course. Kotoli'i to you if you speak Fofoldi. Thank you for joining us. Bom dia to all of our Portuguese speaking friends. Buongiorno, of course, if you speak Italian, or those of you who are a little elite, they'll say Italian. Bonjour if you speak French. Imaraba, buenos dias. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing? Again, the name is Zoe Baraka and the show is To My Younger Self. So let's jump in and let us introduce our guest. We're moving fast today. We're moving really, really fast. Yes. Habari yako. Yes. Yaw Nsarkoh says that it is wonderful, wonderful to see you. So a couple of weeks ago, we released this incredible book called Let. My co-author and myself, Abaketo Anda, and of course you can see yours truly. My name is right there, Zoe Baraka. Anyway, we released this incredible book, which is really an anthology of powerful letters that we curated specially for you. We asked people to write letters of hope to their younger selves. The task was very, very simple. You know, pick a time in your life that you were going through something particularly challenging and write a letter of hope with the hindsight that you have now. And the kind of letters that came at us were incredible. These people kind of really dug in. And, you know, so in this season, we duly launched the book virtually a couple of weeks ago. And one of the people that was in the book that was graciously accepted to be part of this project is the Venerable Yaw Nsarkoh. And, you know, last week out of the blue, I just says, hey, I would love for him to be on the show. His storytelling prowess is powerful. The man has been through some things and he tells stories with such panache. And so instead of asking him for his bio, I decided I would read a little bit of our introduction based off of our conversation with him in the book. So it's not going to be a lot, but I'm always telling you, we are a platform of researchers. So all you need to do, if you want to know more about Yaw, is you need to just go to Google and type in Yaw Nsarkoh. I guarantee you the information that's going to come flying at you is going to leave you gobsmacked, literally. But here we go. So this is one of the things we wrote. So Yaw Nsarkoh, his governing life quote, which is a thing that we coined, is, I'd like to be remembered as someone who loved his neighbor. You know, we can go home now because that in itself is just powerful. And he is a chemical engineer. He is a civil society advocate. His portfolio is very vast and very wide. He's an advisor, investor. He could be an inventor, so that's okay. And he's a strategist. He's a former executive vice president of Unilever Global Markets. And this is from Yaw. He says, the men who have succeeded are men who have chosen one line and stuck to it. This is by Andrew Carnegie. Yaw Nsarkoh is very much a man of his own mind. He holds strong, passionate convictions and is not swayed by majority opinion. I know that. I so know that. Yaw has always been this way. He remembers a time as a teenager when he overheard his mother remark that he didn't seem to be interested in the things that typically interested young people of his age. Growing up, he lived on a university campus and attended one of the best secondary schools in Ghana. He describes himself as living a life of relative privilege, yet he states that this is definitely in Yaw Nsarkoh fashion. He says that he has never been attracted to the way of the elite. And so when he attended the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Yaw chose to reside at University Hall, or what is generally termed as or known as Katanga Hall, because it was a collection of people who were not concerned about status. We were just who we were. I'm going to leave it there. There's so much more to his introduction and so much material that you can find in this book when you buy your copy. But ladies and gentlemen, today I took so much time introducing our guest, but only because he's bigger than life. He fills up your screen, and he's just one of those people, you just don't even know what to say about him. but I would let Yaw talk for himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, in grand to my younger self fashion, please help me welcome the absolutely indefatigable, incredible Yaw Nsarkoh. Hello, sir.
Hello, Zoe. Thank you very much. I'm a bit overwhelmed by the generosity of your words. I hope that I can live to the expectation that you have set. But thank you so much for those very kind words, and I also thank you tremendously for inviting me to this program. I imagine that there are people listening from all over the world, so I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are. I am so glad to be with you all. It's always delightful just to listen to the infectious energy of Zoe and actually all the associates. I was just talking to her about meeting her publisher, and I happen to know Abba, who was also 1 year behind me in school. And they all have a characteristic, very infectious, positive energy about them. That as soon as you come in their presence, you get swept by it too. And that's the way it happens. So
Well, we are grateful to have you here, sir.
thank you so much. So I thought I would start by quoting one of the greatest storytellers that I know and that I suspect that most Africans also know, the venerable Professor Chinua Achebe, who said that it is the storyteller who makes us what we are, who creates history. The storyteller creates the memory that the survivors must have. Otherwise, their surviving would have no meaning. I would like to repeat that, but a little faster. It is the storyteller who makes us what we are, who creates history. The storyteller creates the memory that the survivors must have. Otherwise, their surviving would have no meaning. That was Chinua Achebe. So today I will tell 4 stories, varying in length. I agonized a little bit about what to tell because this is Zoe, so they had to be special and relevant. But eventually, I came up with these 4. And story 1 is an encounter with armed robbery in 2002. 21 years ago, my family and I were attacked by armed robbers. I was badly injured in the process. A gun was pointed at my then 3-month-old son while my wife pleaded for his life. She caught pellets in her arms. But all around us, people stood up to support us, in what ultimately showed us the good humanity can do. A single call to my brother Eric saw him assemble a team of armed policemen and lead them in his own car while they drove after him to our home at 4 a.m. He became our ambulance driver as upon discovering the robbers had fled, he drove us to the hospital all the way in Kolebu. For those who know Accra a little bit, this was from the Spintex Road to Kolebu at dawn.
That is far.
Indeed. Members of Livingston House, my boarding house when I was in secondary school, then organized on a Yahoo group. I'm sure the younger ones don't know what that is. It was the precursor to the WhatsApp group that you have.
That was the biggest WhatsApp group then.
Members of Livingston House, my boarding house when I was in secondary school, then organized on a Yahoo group, gave me what was at the time a substantial amount of money, a new phone to immediately replace what had been taken, and helped us fix up our house. Again, my brother Eric, also of Livingston House, drove me to see my then living parents, and so on and so forth. It was the only time ever I saw my father cry as he took his grandson from me and looked at my bandages. My mother also took my son too, and in a turn of events that moves me even today, asked us to close our eyes so we could pray. When she prayed, she fervently asked God to give the people who had attacked us meaningful jobs so they would not hurt anyone else. From everywhere, the union, a social club I belong to, Unilever, my employer, church, everywhere support boarding. We give thanks. Today, by God's grace, we have much, much more than the thieves could have taken. Never fear. God kept us alive for a reason. The prayer of my mother still reverberates in my mind. Every day since, we try to find that reason and live it, however imperfectly. There may be some bad people on earth, but there are also many good, kind people. We give thanks. When you survive such an ordeal, you stop seeing life as a contest for the popular vote. You just live your truth until the sun goes down for you someday for the very last time. Ah, Luta continua. That's the end of my first story.
Oh my goodness. You know, I'm smiling because I'm inclined to smile all the time. But this is a story that has so much to unpack. Abaketo Anda is on here with us, and one of the things that she has pointed out, for example, is the power of a good support system and the power of community. This story is so jam-packed, with such stories of the power of the African spirit, in that in deep poverty you can still find community, and yeah. So it's not a question and answer session, really. What we're having is you telling stories. But one of the things I want to ask you in this particular story is, does your son remember? Well, no, of course he's not going to remember this, but did it have any impact on him at all? For example, it's
Not that I am aware of. No, he was 3 months.
he was, yeah.
So he doesn't really, because we told him that he had a gun pointed at him when he was young. I didn't tell the full story, but actually when the thieves broke in, my wife hid him. She had the presence of mind. Essentially, my mind froze completely. So she was giving the orders about what to do. She had the presence of mind to go into the wardrobe with him.
Wow.
And for maybe that's what also saved them, because for, I don't know, the 40 minutes or so that the thieves were around.
40 minutes?
Yeah, they were turning everything upside down. They had a suspicion that I had some huge stash of money and I had nothing. And then after a period of time with a baby in a hot place, he started to cry.
Yes.
So that's when they found out. And then they tried to use the lever. At the time, all that was on my mind was that we had no money at home. I didn't know. They kept saying, give us the dollars, give us the pounds. So I said, I don't have anything. But when they pointed the gun at him, my wife suddenly remembered that she had her jewelry. So she just opened the wardrobe, took all her gold and whatever, and gave it to them. For people starting life, you kind of then at that stage think you've lost everything you work for. But if there's anything I can tell young people, life is much more important than anything material. You'll always get it back if you get to these days. We actually talk about having too many things and wanting to give some out and so on and so forth. So it is also, you have to choose how you respond to things. We could focus on the head, or we could focus on the lessons. And to this day, when I talk about my mother's prayer, I get emotional because I was confused. I'm her first son. She has only 2 children. And at the time when somebody had tried to kill her son, her prayer was that they find jobs. It is something that I have tried to live by and learn. There are causative factors in society. She used to say this when she was alive, that if you go to the maternity ward, none of the babies there is bad. Nobody is born bad. It is society and nurturing that make people bad. This was a fundamental philosophy of her life. So when she saw people derailed in society, all my life, I saw her. The first thing she did was to ask how the person was brought up. And usually she found the answer. She was a child psychologist, so it's not too surprising.
Right.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
chose to share that story both as encouragement to younger people, but also I think there are lessons for all of us. It's not just younger people.
Mm.
And now that you say Abba is online and I can see her posting, you know that I'm always extremely well behaved when Abba is around.
Oh goodness. I don't know if I should say thank God for Abba or I should say Abba, please. Please give him a little room to wiggle today, you know. But Abba, thank you for joining us too. And really to everyone that has joined us, I see Doris Ishan, Auntie Doris, you're here. Nadel Achu, thank you for joining us. Mola Metafevi Sedi, thank you for joining us. Jane Halm Quadrain, thank you for joining us. Nana Amfo, it is good to see you. There's a couple of you here and you haven't put your names in there yet. You're just watching us. We want to hear from you. So please, please say something to us. You know, one of the things you said that is so powerful, of course, from your mother, is she said a prayer, God, let them have good jobs or let them find a station in life that will cause them not to do this. But the other thing that you said that's so important is that life is much more important than anything material. Young adults lately do not necessarily know that. Unfortunately, in the life that we find ourselves in now, where everything is on social media, we seem to think that when we see somebody in a picture or in a particular space doing something, that they may have some kind of life. So life is not necessarily so straightforward anymore. And young adults, for the most part, are looking at the material things instead of the purpose of life and the impact life can give you. If this story is anything to go by, it is that life is so much more important than any material thing, and that we can always get it back, those material things. That is such a powerful story, Yao. I just wanted to comment on that. And I know you have a couple other stories to share. I kind of don't really want to leave this story. There's just so much to unpack there. I want to hear more about your mother. She seemed like an incredible woman and she must have taught you so many life stories. I want to hear about your father and the fact that he cried. Not many African men cry, you know, so when a father cries, you know how deep that goes. And his prayer must have been even more powerful, even though he may not have voiced it to your hearing or to anyone's hearing, really. So there's so much to unpack there, but I'm going to leave it. And maybe backstage, you can unpack more to me. I'm special today, so hello. But Abba says I should tell you, yeah, wiggle room granted. So all righty, we're gonna, we're ready for your second story.
Thank you very much, Zoe. So we go to the second story, which I have titled Live Young Forever. And it's more about my impressions about life and not just about my own experiences. So I have had fundamental shifts about how I view age and aging. Since a 90-year-old professor adopted me as his son and mentee, he stays away from publicity a bit. That's why I haven't mentioned his name. This man's energy and intellectual sharpness leaves people 6 decades younger than him biting the dust regularly, with no apologies, breathtakingly. His dexterity with digital tools and sheer passion for the future banished any thoughts from my mind of slowing down because I am in my 50s. Then, this morning, I read that Deng Xiaoping, who always came to life around young people, had some interesting things to say. On his famous Southern tour, undertaking at age 88 in 1988, Deng told a 51-year-old that he was now entering the prime of his life and responded to a man that said he was 60 that, quote unquote, you are still very young. In China, when I visited, I noticed how many top-notch professors from Western countries are active there, mentoring and training younger generations of Chinese talent after they had retired in the West. They told me in China, Not many can become world leaders in their fields way before age 60. So why do they get sent into retirement when they turn 60 in some places? Where exactly did we learn this system? And by we, I'm now referring to us Ghanaians and Africans. That sends our topmost and most experienced scholars to the cowshed when they turn 60. It is one of the most nonsensical talent management policies ever implemented, suited only for indolent, low-growth Robinson Crusoe societies. Another thing we must undo. A president can be almost 80, but that is too old for a professor. The key opportunity we have here is to deepen systematic intergenerational collaboration. For about a year now, I have worked closely with people from the age range of 18 to 90. One compelling lesson I have taken out is that if a culture of mutual respect is established, magic happens when the generations come together. I am deeply committed to making this happen wherever I can. Some of our most knowledgeable are available and willing. But pompous people seem to think those who came before us know nothing useful any longer. This is a terribly mistaken notion. And then we just waste deep knowledge and experience. I simply do not know. So as always, I'm trying to impress Abba, so I'm going to try to sing. The Nigerian Afrobeat musician Techno would say, my country people, them they talk. Story, story, story everywhere. And that brings me to the end of my story. But I sent this to my former boss and global CEO, Paul Polman, and he came back with a reaction that I thought I should share. He said, Yaw, a great insight indeed. Shimon Peres, who was once the prime minister of Israel, told me when I asked him how he kept so young and full of ideas and knowledge, despite his age being in his 90s. He very simply said, this is Paulman quoting Shimon Peres, Paul, when your list of things to do is longer than the list of things you have done, you are young. That now is the end of my story, of my second story.
Oh my God. I know you guys have questions. One of the things I want to comment on is, I think in another life, Yao would have been a radio presenter or a TV presenter of some sort. One, because I can listen to him forever, you know? If he was on the radio just reading stories, you would literally be able to close your eyes and just delve into the words because he reads so powerfully. That was just my own comment. But there's such a waste of brain drain. There's just such brain drain in our society, yeah, where we discard what we think is old. By 60 years old, we just don't even want to listen to them anymore. How do you think? I know there's the issue of mentorship, mentee, and that's a dime a dozen. We have a lot of those. There's so many NGOs that are trying to do that, and we thank each and every one of them. But as much as we're doing the work, it doesn't seem to be reflecting in the society, where if I was close to Yao right now, literally I would just grab a camera and just go sit by him. That's what I would love to do. And just ask him as many questions, the silliest questions and the smartest questions I can come up with. Literally, like, why are you wearing black socks? I would ask that. And what is your life purpose, and what do you determine to be impact in society? Like intelligent questions like that. That's what I would do. In fact, that's one of my dreams. I would just grab a camera and go sit by an experienced person, not necessarily an elderly person in age, because as Yao has just said, age is really just a number. So Yao, the question for you is, how do we make sure this synergy that you've just described actually helps us as a society in places like Ghana, for example?
Well, I think first of all is a redefinition of what we mean by mentoring. There is a lot of nameplate mentoring, and we have come to think
Can you
that
expound on that? Nameplate mentoring.
nameplate mentoring, in my view, is something mechanistic.
Mm.
Zoe gets assigned to Abba. Abba is a mentor, and they feel that they have met once or twice, and therefore she is mentoring him. But I think Amilcar Cabral famously said, freedom is an act of culture. I believe that mentoring is also an act of culture. It has an organic dimension, a real deep relationship. And if you go back into our African traditions and cultural practices of orature and so on, the old lady and old man sitting by the fireside and telling stories about life and imparting so much wisdom was actually mentoring people, but it was done in such a communal, affectionate, deeply connected way. It was not just a mechanistic tick box activity. You fill some uh, spreadsheets, and then you're told that this is your personality type, and then you're giving a tip. And one mentor has 70 people, so they spend 5 minutes with each. That does not give you the effect that you want in society. I often say to people that this is the fast food generation. They want everything quickly. I was recently arguing with some people because we're having a speaker event, and they were telling me people don't have an attention span to listen to a speech of an hour. I said, what are you talking about? People go to the club for 6 hours, 7 hours. They go for funerals for 8 hours. They sit in church for. So why, when it comes to that, we want to think about ourselves and what to do. Why are we not able to make the time? So that's what I would say. We need to be a bit more deliberate. For the generations to get on, the generations must spend time together. It cannot be done remotely. They need to spend time together, get to know each other, listen to each other's story, know that they bring different things to the party, but everybody brings something. I was telling you before we came on the show that I just come back from Ghana. And one of the things I did when I was in Ghana is I visited 7 people that were octogenarians and nonagenarians. And in their presence, I don't even like to talk. I only talk when they go quiet, and that's usually to ask a short question to get them going, because they have so much that they have learned in their lives. We're actually working on a project now to try and document some of it in books and recordings and so on.
Please, can I just stop you there and say, where is that project? Because I just lifted up my hand, and how can I be a part of it now, today?
We will tell you, because very thankfully Joy FM has come along, so they are making it possible, and it's a really good example. The young people are excited to be part of this, and when I say young, in the context of 90-year-olds, I'm considered young.
Absolutely, yes.
But the older people are also very deeply excited that we're doing this stuff. And then, very interestingly, I got 6 people, they are all in their 20s. I got a message from LinkedIn. They said they wanted to talk to me. So I showed up, and they said, we see what you do and we want to be part of it. And how can we help? So we talked and we came up with something, and now we work together. So through those devices, you now have 20-year-olds who are collaborating on 90-year-olds. They play different roles, but they all come together to make it happen. And I think that's where you see the magic begin to happen, because we all have different experiences. So the 90-year-olds respect us deeply, but we respect them too deeply. Then magic happens.
Wow. Wow. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking about this project. It looks like I'm shamelessly just flaunting this book. And please forgive me. I am being shameless in this particular regard because, one, it's a great book, but also, two, I was part of the people that kind of put it together. So, you know, I am going to shamefully flaunt it. But also, Yao is in this book. So this topic that we're talking about right now, there's an age gap of there is 80-year-olds in here, but there's also 20-something-year-olds in here. You know, between the 39 people that we curated, and the stories are many and varied, and the experiences are many and varied, but all of it is a minefield of life nuggets that you cannot even imagine or fathom. Imagine if all these people just on, is there a wood here? Unfortunately, well, there's the wood, knock on wood, just went to passed away, unfortunately, without actually telling these stories. Imagine how terrible that would be. That is to say, go get the book on Amazon. Very unashamedly, go get the book. But yeah, I want to thank you for that, for even putting together the project. And when this session is done, I really would want to get a little deeper with you on it, one on one, and see how we can come alongside and be a part of this project in one way or another. Because it is important that these things are happening. The reason why Hollywood seems to be so big is because all they did was they kept telling personal stories. That's all it is. Deep personal stories. Some of them are a little made up, but most of them are things that happen to people, personal stories. And they just delved into, cultural stories. And what are we doing as a people? Thank you so much for sharing this story. Yeah, this one really, both of your stories have just gripped me. And I don't know why you haven't been on To My Younger Self until now. But God's timing is the perfect one, because
Indeed.
now is the time that you show up. And listen, guys, if you're ready for Yao's third story, I want to see some thumbs up in the chat room. Please give me 3 thumbs up and we will give him the green light. So who is in here and who wants to hear the third story? Come on, guys, you can do it. We're not going to go on until I see some thumbs. Seriously. There we go. I see one thumb. In the meantime, Jennifer Ideku says, what a fantastic project. I know, right? I am excited about this project. I don't even really know exactly what it is yet, but I'm already so super excited. Doris says interpersonal communication. Yes, but most importantly, for those of us from Africa, we also need a lot of intrapersonal communication. But that's another topic for another day. Jane says, simply amazing. Nana Redamwa, my big brother, he says, coincidentally, I just drove on the street of the first story and I raised my hand in salute to Yao. Oh, aluta continua. My goodness, my goodness. And of course, the thumbs up are coming. All right, okay, I give up. There's too many thumbs up. So here we go into the third story. Over to you, Yao.
The third story is a bit be another Monday for sure. Something is agitating my mind, even up to the J. Kufuor era. The last time I met Wale Soyinka in Accra at an event, the visits of some of these African scholars to Ghana had almost the status of a state visit. I wrote this when Wale Soyinka had come to Ghana, and I found out from a friend. I was very surprised that he had slipped into Ghana, and we didn't know. So, as I said, I met Wale Soyinka in Accra at an event. The visits of some of these senior African scholars to Ghana had almost the status of a state visit, among the intelligentsia, that is. That was certainly my experience when I met Kwame Ture, Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and Maya Angelou in Accra during the Rawlings era, and when I encountered Nadine Gordimer and Ali Mazrui during the JAK, that's John Ajekum Kufuor, and Mills is President Mills era. I had met Professor Femi Oshofison, a talented writer and a truly humorous man, at the headquarters of the Ghana Association of Writers. That building holds a lot of teenage memories for me. It was the residence of my great childhood friends, the Deborahs. I spent some quality time there as a child, therefore. Nadine Gordimer was in town. As you know, Nadine Gordimer is a Nobel laureate for literature from South Africa, the woman who inspired the title of my write-up. Physically diminutive, a giant in intellect. Atukwe Okai had reacted like a possessed man when, on account of her being white, someone had described the great Nadine as a foreigner to the African people. Nadine paid back the graciousness of Atukwe fully, laying bare the dangers of Eurocentricity in an expert but accessible manner. She had fulsome praise for Naguib Mahfouz, disagreed with Shoinka on the tiger not talking tigritude. I disagreed with her on her disagreement with Shoinka. We were people who could disagree sharply but be united by a common cause. Later, in Ngugi, about the same topic, the tiger not talking tigritude, that is, said Shoinka was quote-unquote ever the prophet. Ngugi agreed with Shoinka eventually. After having been bashed for decades by many prominent African writers for his early warning about negritude, a precursor of the Africa-rising magical thinking that saddles more recent generations, consensus seems to have shifted to Shoinka's favor in his old age. Thank God. Even up to the start of the Fourth Republic, the W.E.B. Du Bois Center was all green. A lush, well-manicured lawn covered most of the grounds. The trees had leaves and a charisma that made you remember the biblical Garden of Eden. When I had watched Maya Angelou dance to talking drums with such grace and sensuality, even at her age of 69 then, I was in my early 20s, but I fell absolutely in love with the woman. She could dance like she was divine, and she danced. Danced until tears rolled down her cheeks. Her joy at being on the soil of our ancestors possessed her totally. She moved gracefully and effortlessly, like the very earth was at the command of her charms. We joined Maya. She had us all in a trance as we danced with her. She had magic, pure magic. The reticent Ngugi nearly caused pandemonium when Professor Kofi Anidoho announced his presence, and we realized he was there. Everyone wanted to see him, the great Ngugi, regal-looking in a black African shirt, sat aloof with his trademark uncombed hair. Ever the intellectual warrior, inspired by the Mau Mau Land and Freedom Party, a worthy descendant of Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi himself. I ran into Professor Kofi Awono, who read a poem the night Maya spoke. He was mad at Kwesi Pratt Jr., though the two, later in life, became the best of friends. The debonair CBK Zwanis, a lawyer's lawyer in his resplendent smock, had introduced Akoto Ampao, Akoto who sadly passed away just a few days ago. CBK Zwanis, a lawyer's lawyer in his resplendent smock, had introduced Akoto Ampao, Pratt and I to Kofi Awono. Dentist Lee had spoken fondly of Maya's days in Accra. I would often run into Akoto Ampao and Professor Kwame Karikari at these kinds of events. Professor Atukwe Okai organized many of them. I am allowed a little nostalgia. I am, after all, a retired man. I mostly attended such events with my late mother. I do not know whether it is good or bad. These days, I am no longer sure I understand life in Ghana, especially among the Ghanaian elite. I find that group a baffling lot. The last time I went to the Du Bois Center, I wondered how it could still be a worthy memorial to the great man. Is nothing sacred anymore for us? For God's sake, this was the great man's residence. Ghana housed the great man. He lived here among us. It is now covered with red soil where the lush lawns once lay in harsh praise of the great man. The grass Maya captivated us on is all gone. Wole Soyinka said about many of us Africans that what we cannot eat, we do not treasure. Du Bois was no minor figure. He remains one of the most globally significant scholars of the global African world and of all oppressed peoples all over the world. a fecund mind if there ever was one. He was magnificently prolific. When I met Kwame Ture, also known as Stokely Carmichael, one of the most historically significant personalities of the civil rights movement and Pan-Africanism more generally, an author whose autobiography, published posthumously, can make your blood curdle in horror at what happened in America in the 50s and 60s. An orator of considerable power at the peak of his influence and charisma. A member of the few that dared to stand in the way of racist efforts at domination. An associate of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, James Baldwin, member of the Freedom Ride, and more. He was pensive. I now know that having flown in from Guinea for the event, Kwame Ture knew he was in Ghana for the very last time. He had come to see the land of his ex-boss, Kwame Nkrumah, for the very, very last time. Keen to understand whether W.E.B. Du Bois Center was going to be a galvanizing point for the peoples of Africa, or whether it would just be some bourgeois distraction. Kwame Ture had been diagnosed with terminal cancer at the time. He knew he did not have much longer to live, and in 2 years thereabouts, much longer than the doctors had given him initially, he was gone, joined the ancestors. The first time I saw Wole Soyinka address an audience, I took notes on public speaking that have served me well throughout my career. We learned from the very best. Soyinka before a crowd shows you why he's one of the very best dramatists that ever lived on this planet. He can fill a room easily. He does what he wants with the crowd. You may not agree with Soyinka, but you cannot ignore him. So, will some kind soul help me understand, please? When did it become the case that African writers of Wole Soyinka's caliber could come to Ghana for public events and it would remain so low-key? Achebe is gone. Mazrui is gone. Ama Atedu is gone. Thandika Nkandawire is gone. Samir Amin is gone. Edubuahi is gone. James Baldwin and Toni Morrison are gone too. Bantu Stephen Biko and P.A.V. Ansah are gone. J.H. Nketia, Kwame Jechi, A.A. Kwapong, Kwame Ahi, Kwesi Redu, Jawa, the great Jawa Apronti, all gone. Ephraim Amu is gone. Olam Rotimi, the maestro, gone. So is Ken Saro-Wiwa, gone too. When he was killed, my mother thought I would go into clinical depression. My world collapsed. An African leader could do this to an African writer? I was not alone in horror. Nelson Mandela exploded in fury, showing the Mandela that had once led Operation Mayibuye. He called a colleague African head of state unprintable names and promised to explode the world under him. It was to Saro-Wiwa's funeral in quote and unquote, held where GAW, Ghana Association of Writers, is hosted today, that we headed to save our sanity, my late mother and I, joined by many of our compatriots from across the continent. We sat in disbelief, but Professor Claude Eke, speaking on video, rose to the occasion. A close friend of Ken Saro-Wiwa's, Claude Eke dazzled with his formidable intellect, urging us not to give up, not to fear. Claude Eke too is gone, just like Beko Ransom Kuti, Gani Fawehimi, Alfred Ruwani, Shehu Musa Yaradua, Kudirat Abiola, Bola Ige, and more are gone. Desmond Tutu, Govan Mbeki, Chief Lutuli, Oliver Tambo, Joe Slovo, and Ruth First, Moses Kotani, gone. They killed Josiah Mwangi Kariuki. They killed Tom Mboya, and they killed Pio Dagama Pinto. I cannot list them all, worthy ancestors. They fought so we may have freedom today. And look what we are doing with that freedom. Soyinka, Ayikweyama, Cameron Dodu, Ngugi, Michere Gitai Mugo, and their ilk are all now octogenarians. Kofi Asare-Opoku just turned 90. Angela Davis, the great Angela Davis, is almost 80 now. Why do we reward their life work this way? Shifting priorities of the Ghanaian people, too much hunger, too much time praying at all-night services, too much time spent on hedonist pleasures and debauchery. When one slave sees another slave cast into a shallow grave upon his death, he should know that when his time comes, it will not be different. A society that honors none eventually produces no people of honor. Where are the present writers of Ghana? Gone with the wind? Also falling captive to the ringing claws of neoliberal capitalism, so much so that they only think about their own stomachs? I only seek knowledge here. Please help me if you can. Do not be angry with me. I am merely trying to understand life in this new Ghana. If we cannot honor Du Bois, let us not desecrate his memory. When we meet as writers, perhaps at that miserable cathedral they are building in honor of the Sunday school Jesus of the Uncle Toms, someone can explain to me why we no longer seem to want to show respect and honor to our forebears. It will not surprise me if on that occasion, like the Achimotans at Founders Day, we would have forgotten our own forebears, and yet we will be willing to hail Gordon Guggisberg, a racist colonialist governor. Some Monday for sure, this must all change. We must change it. A luta continua. And the postscript is that since I wrote this, which was 19 June 2023, Michere Mugo is also gone, and Akoto Ampao is also gone. That is the end of my third story.
I've held back tears. Thank you for this one. I'm short for words. As you were reading, yeah, I closed my eyes because there's this show, it's a podcast really that I listen to. It's called Soul Music, BBC Soul Music. And it's really just people talking about the impact of music in their lives, and they tell stories intertwined in those songs. It felt like I was listening to that. It does something to me, this powerful storytelling. And the questions you've asked in there, are things that weigh on me daily. How do we in fact, to my younger self is literally that. Me, a lone soldier, really, just trying so hard to figure out how do we document these stories and these powerful people? How do we make people see who they are in their own words and in their own environment? How does W.E. Du Bois' place become what it is now? Most importantly, why are we where we are? The questions are so many, I don't even know how to react to this. And how do we fix this? And is it... Guys, you have to help me out here because my brain, it's a heavy story. It's such a heavy story. What happened to the freedom that was fought for us? What are we doing with it? The questions are many and I don't know what to say. Yao, how do we, for example, at least do something about, the residence of this great man? How do we do that? Do we do collection like they do in church? Because I don't know if the government will help. How do we need a government that is more pro this particular topic we're talking about? How do we make sure that in a generation or two, this is not our plight any longer? What happened? Yeah, this is actually my question to you. Where did we go wrong? How did we go wrong so badly?
Well, I suppose that I'm not even going to try to answer. We all have to think about it. And when I say we need to make time, this is what I am saying, that we need to make time sit down and talk about these things. We cannot process life like everything is a tweet. Everywhere you go these days, somebody has been given a certain amount of time to speak, and the time is being reduced. It looks like when it comes to serious thinking, I was telling some people recently that before Deng Xiaoping started the Chinese reforms, he went into a meeting with China has a way of rating their intellectuals and academics. So he was in a 5-day meeting with the top 33 scholars in China, where he literally hardly spoke apart from asking questions. And for 5 days, the people spoke to him. And then he stood up and gave his famous 3-hour speech non-stop, where he essentially outlined the kernel of what the reform process was going to be. And it is from that 800 million people came out of poverty. Where is the equivalent of that in our society? When I was younger, I used to accompany my mother to many of these sorts of things. And there in Accra, we were not elsewhere. There in Accra, there was time we sat, I met great people, Shoinka, Ali Mazrui, and so on and so forth, there in Accra. These days, all of that just seems to have disappeared. So, like Achebe used to say, the writer's place is not to give answers to people. The writer's place is to make people think. And for me, if we succeed in doing that, like you're doing, then I think we have done our bit. But if I were pressed for more concrete
I am
proposals,
pressing. I am
what,
pressing.
what I would say is just like the example you're setting, everybody is capable of doing something. That something need not be the same. We all have different gifts and talents. So to whatever gift or talent you have, use it. Those of you who have listened to many of my public speeches know that I am enthralled, enamored by Martin Luther King's life blueprint. And when he's ending, he says, if it falls in your place to clean the streets, I'm not using the exact words, do it as if you were painting a Michelangelo picture. The point he's making is whatever you're capable of doing, give it your very best. And if we all give our very best, invariably, we secure a life and society that is much better for all of us. And that's where I would like to leave it. I think it's only fair, I take absolutely no credit for it, to say that since this was written, the President of the Republic has come out and said that the government will renovate the W.E.B. Du Bois Center. I will not be as presumptuous as thinking that it is because of me that they are doing that. All that is important to me is that somebody has finally decided that this is an embarrassment and it needs to be improved. And I'm looking forward to those improvements being made.
Nadell says we can do this without the government because I think they don't care. A non-caring government is a very dangerous one, but we're not here to discuss government today. We're just here to discuss stories. So we'll leave it there. The one thing that's lingering on my mind is after this powerful speech in China, where, I don't know, you gave a number. Did you say 800 million people?
800 million. The reforms of China that were started in 1980 is something that, again, our educational process has just completely parked by the side. You ask many Ghanaians who Deng Xiaoping is, they don't know. In my view, and I've said this on public stages many times, in my view, he's the most historically significant leader that the human race has produced. If you're thinking in terms of impact, there is no competitor. The whole of Europe, the population is 747 million. So somebody who leads a process that takes 800 million people out of poverty. And the story of the man shows you that if you want to make enduring, long-term, meaningful changes in life, it doesn't come easy. The people on this call are mainly Christians. And when I refer to the Sunday school Jesus of the Uncle Toms, usually when I say that, people immediately say, "Oh, what do you mean by this?" And I say, "Yeah, there's a very sanitized, in a perverse way, image of Christ that is being presented. Again, I'm part of a project with people like Dr. Yaw Nsarkoh, Clarence Nate, Reverend Professor Asamoah Gyedu, and others who are trying to do something about this, where we say the full comprehensive picture of Christ has almost been sanitized into a bland version. And there are some very important dimensions. I mean, the story about Pontius Christ appearing before Pontius Pilate is just told just like that in Sunday school. And say, oh, he appeared before Pontius Pilate. Who was Pontius Pilate? He was the governor of the Roman Empire, a very powerful man. And yet when he dared to say to Christ, don't you know I have the power of life? Christ reprimanded him. This was the governor of the Roman Empire. He was a man who through all his life was always on the side of social justice. The underprivileged, the woman who was being looked at down upon because she was immoral. This was a theocratic establishment. We think about the Pharisees and Sadducees as the priests in the Presbyterian Church and Methodist. No, it was a theocratic establishment. So the Pharisees and the Sadducees were like cabinet ministers. They were very powerful political actors. And yet the Bible is full of Christ standing up to their injustice, their hypocrisy, their duplicity. So we as Christians, when we are told to be the salt of the earth, it means that we cannot stand as undisturbed sandbars when there's injustice in society. Recently, I went BSEC when I saw the videos of people in the Volta region of Ghana just being submerged by water, and then the official response is that we told them to move and they did not move. And I asked the question, could you have done this in cantonments? Could you have done this in Reach? So all of that is also part of the Christian mission. That's what I mean when I say we must reconstruct. Go back, we call the project we are working on, Give Me That Old Time Religion. Go back to the biblical Christ, not the vanished Hollywood version that has been given to us in Uncle Tom's Cabin. And to do that is to live a mission where you are trying, as Deng Xiaoping put it, to liberate the productive forces in order to improve the livelihoods. And if you're going to do that, it doesn't come easy. Deng is today universally celebrated, but he was rejected by the Marxists in China because the Marxists at the time said rather a rich socialism, no, rather a poor socialism than a rich capitalism. And Deng responded that if you only have a poor socialism, socialism will collapse. He was also rejected by the capitalists because he said, your model, which leaves only a few people very rich and the majority very poor, also doesn't work. So one man was taking on the left and the right simultaneously. And what was his reward for it? For 20 years, he himself said, I was sent to live in the cowshed. He was not allowed to participate in the governance of China. He was saved only because his mentor was a very powerful man who protected him. But eventually, again, something, if there are older people, and I've been arguing with them these days because they say to me, oh, you are the younger guy. I say, no. When Deng, in 1980, when Deng Xiaoping started the reforms, he was 76. It was at the age of 76 that he started the process that took 800 million people out of poverty. So it's never too late. We should all give what we can. And because this is a largely Christian community, I really want to make that point. You know that song, Give Me That Old Time Religion? It's one of my favorite songs.
Old time religion.
Give me that old time religion. Absolutely love it. And if you listen to the Caribbean medley, it ends with fire, 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 fall on me. Fire, 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 fall on me. On the day of Pentecost. That's one of my best songs. Yeah. So,
but you know, we spiritualize that.
On the day of Pentecost, fire fall on us. And may that happen to the African Christian movement. May it happen in Ghana. The day we have to get back the spirit of Pentecost. And the spirit of Pentecost was a spirit of courage, a spirit of determination, a spirit of intensity, a spirit of a willingness to remake the world and see that those of us who life has blessed, because all of us on this call, we are in the circumstances of our homeland, we are very privileged people. And we should never forget that we are people who went into privilege as a result of the back-breaking exertion of ordinary people, miners, cocoa farmers, etc. So whatever we have got, we have to be concerned about bringing more social justice in our society. People ask me all the time, how come you say you're not interested in politics and you're not wanting to stand an election, but you're forever speaking? I said, because we have the responsibility. We are equipped with a certain degree of intellectual development and capacity to articulate that the ordinary people on the streets do not have. And it is our role to speak up and talk about the injustices in our society and straighten it, not just to go and sit down in a corner and think we have. That's the situation with the middle class in Ghana. No electricity, you get a generator. No water, you get a water tank. Schooling system is collapsing. So we find private solutions for public problems until one day the whole society collapses. And then there's nowhere to hide. As somebody said to me recently, he said, but you're always talking about this, but we are not the rich. So if there's another June 4th, we are not the people who are going to be attacked. And I said to him,
oh, you don't know that.
Yeah, I said, in whose eyes are you not rich? In the eyes of the person who stands under the street selling dog chains every day, you are very rich. You come past in your air condition, you go to your house with electric fences on your wall, you are very rich. And when, as James Baldwin said, the most dangerous creation of any society is the man with nothing to lose. And when you have so many people with nothing to lose, and one day they strike back, then you have the spirit of June 4th. They kill before they even think about what they are doing.
Yes.
So sorry that I've gone into this, but
no, it's so needed.
I feel very strongly about it, and particularly because I'm speaking, Christ did not take the easy road. He took the road less traveled. So this idea of a comfortable Christianity is an idea that is not biblical. I'd like to see where it is in the Bible, and the fixation with prosperity and so on. Read Christ's own message in the Bible. That was not his emphasis. But we'll have that discussion another time, or else I will not tell my fourth story. And
I don't know that people we're all in here just this conversation just needs to go deeper, and I'm looking forward to the day that I can just have a one-on-one. I'm not even trying to say, oh, here's a one-on-one, let's go live. No, it's just a one-on-one with you where we can just talk. I think that's an example you're modeling that we must learn from, that not everything needs to be publicized. It's not even important like that. The importance is the act of literally young adults literally seeking people to say, can you talk to me? It's so important. And see, now we're learning all these things. Okay, I think I'm going to jump off my soapbox too, because we're on a time crunch, because I have so much to say. Our producer Elsie says, you're speaking my language. Social justice is both an aspirational goal and a present day responsibility. It requires a personal commitment to make a difference. Yes. Yesterday I was talking to one of my mentors. This is someone who's actually involved in my life, and in the process she made a statement. She says, oh, even the Airbnbs in Ghana these days, they even charge in dollars, so that's a good thing. And my entire body just did a rejection thing. I said, no, that is actually not a good thing. That is a terrible thing. You can't live in Ghana and charge by the dollar. How did we get there? And so I was saying, and I remember saying to her yesterday, if I ever had an Airbnb or anything like that in Ghana, I would not dare to charge in dollars. It is ridiculous that we use another country's currency to live in it makes no sense. But so this is what we're saying, that we're making a personal commitment. If 3 of us decided we're not going to charge in dollars anymore, and we're able to pull in an extra 3 who do the same thing. And those, we now are 6, and then the 6 people go in and pull in 6 more. We become 12, and so on and so forth. But it always has to begin with us. We cannot think these things are good things just because it makes us a little comfortable because somebody brought us $1. And we think that's a little better than the Ghana cities. It's not possible that we live like that. Okay, I'm gonna jump off. It's not a soapbox, honestly. This is a thing that's in my spirit. It just, and she was not being, she genuinely was just giving advice, But anyway, I will stop now. I will I will stop now. And the Jesus comment, I want to go deeper into that. I think, producer, do you think Yao has to come back? Because I think he has to come back. Our producer has this thing that she does that because we're really thinking about a master class of storytellers, and I think you're definitely going to be on the bill. But we're going to jump into the 4th story. We definitely have passed 45 minutes.
I'll try and go faster in
No,
reading.
please read at your pace because we enjoy that. Yes.
And just to say that when Doris said, no, it was Elsie, I believe, who talked about personal commitment. Elsie Dixon. Yeah, the statement, "Love your neighbor as yourself," is again rendered in a very bland way in the Sunday school of Uncle Tom.
Uncle Tom.
But it is one of the most striking commitments of Christianity, to aspire to love your neighbor as yourself. And I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, we begin a new sermon.
I really want to hear it, though. If does anyone want to hear it, like I really, really do. Okay, just a little bit. Just delve in it. I really want to hear it.
Well, to love your neighbor as yourself is not a small undertaking. We say it very lightly, the Great Commandments. And we talk about it and we all say we believe in it, but how many people actually spend time to reflect on what it means? You cannot say you love your neighbor as yourself. You see videos of your 200,000 of your compatriots, their property has been put underwater, and you are not moved to say anything. The two are not consistent. But this will require another whole 45 minutes, so please let me move on.
Okay.
So my 4th and final story, and you will see why I'm very keen to talk about it, because I'm celebrating some of my bosses in the early days of my career. So the first part of it is the National Service year and the Unilever interview process. My story with Unilever began by accident. Out of university in Q4 1992, I went to the National Service Secretariat and I had been posted to Unilever, Ghana. I reported for work and was assigned to work in the Quality Assurance Department. My direct boss was Joseph Tusa, and the head of the Quality Assurance Department was Pamela Abba Texan. Both people took a special interest in me. So this is a bit of a mentoring story, Zoe, since we're talking about that.
About mentoring, yeah.
Auntie Abba, as we all called her, adopted me as a younger brother and challenged me a lot professionally. I spent many long hours laboring at the computer place in her office. In those days, there was no email, no mobile phones, no internet, and therefore no social media. But from the very beginning, Abba was determined that I would gain world-class skills in computing, and she pushed me to do so. Joseph Tusa, my very first line manager ever, made loads of time to give me advice about life in general and career development. He was a hilarious character who was very easy to talk to. He represented me well to the quality assurance workforce, and as a result, I made great friends among that team. They all wanted to help me with whatever I needed. Tusa was a special kind of boss, a brother, a friend who encouraged me as well as stretched me. After a few months of national service, he encouraged me to think about becoming a management trainee and to work hard at it, beginning with making a positive impression on Auntie Abba. There's a sense in which it is because of Joseph Tusa that I ended up pursuing a career in Unilever. By the end of the national service year, Auntie Abba never missed an opportunity to let me know I had done exceedingly well. She let everyone know how proud she was of me and how much she supported me. But she also let me know that while she would very highly recommend me to be recruited as a management trainee, it was not her decision to make. I would have to compete in an elaborate interview process, and so the process began. Applied to Unilever in response to the newspaper advert. I still have a photocopy of my handwritten application stating I was a man of integrity. Then I received a telegram. The younger people probably wonder what that is.
Oh, God.
Inviting me for an aptitude test. I prepared for this test like my life depended on it, using the GRE text on logical reasoning and aptitude tests. I was later told I aced these exams. As a result of my passing these exams, I received a comprehensive set of application forms from Unilever. This was delivered by hard copy, and I had to fill them in by hand. When I had done my first draft on a photocopy, I sought out my longtime friend and classmate from Livingston House Achimota School, Johnny Akoto. He had also been my roommate in both sixth form and at Katanga Hall in university. Johnny was an extraordinarily intelligent and militant chemical engineer. In our Katanga days, he was a fearless activist for justice, a guy none in our generation will ever forget. Johnny looked at my responses carefully and gave me invaluable advice on how to modify some of my responses. I took the advice with humility and improved my answers. Very early on, I believed in the power of networks and their ability to challenge you to excellence. Even now, I read my filled application letter with pride. It defined values that have stuck with me for the 3 decades of my professional life. The interview and becoming a management trainee. I submitted my application form and got invited for the interview. My father was delighted that I was going to get a job at David Ando's company. My interview was scheduled to begin at 9 a.m., but my father drove me to Swan Mill, the Unilever head office in central Accra that morning. By 7:30 a.m., he had dropped me off, and I waited by reading and rereading a copy of my application form. Finally, the interview started, and I was like a man possessed. I had to discuss the answers on my application form with a panel of Unilever directors. By this time, I knew the contents of the form inside out and had detailed reasoning for every word that I had put down. Then we had to discuss management case studies in groups. And finally, I had to pick a topic from a box on current affairs and speak to it without notes for 10 minutes. Mine was the Middle East conflict. This was a subject I knew well and had deep interest in, so I had no problem speaking to it. Even though I had studied engineering, the Katanga Hall Porters Lodge was a world-class think tank and debating society on current affairs and geopolitics. I was always at the Porters Lodge in my Katanga days, sometimes till dawn, so this was a relatively easy topic for me. Robert Edumante was the personnel director of Unilever then. I knew about him, but had never physically met him. He was on the interview panel, which was being managed by the personnel advisor, a Nigerian called Emmanuel Imwageni. Robert Edumante was relatively quiet during the interview, but I sourced energy from him. Anytime I looked at him, his expression said to me in some inscrutable way, "Young man, you're doing well. Carry on." Days after the interview, Robert Edumante sent for me to come to his office. He was full of praise and said that in less than a month, I could expect an appointment letter. I was due to travel out of the country, but there was no way I was going to jeopardize getting a job as a management trainee at Unilever. So I canceled the trip and waited for the letter, which did come as promised. In life, there will always be many options, but one has to choose and sacrifice for what is deemed important. You cannot have everything. 1st December 1993, I started my induction as a management trainee. Emmanuel Imwageni, the personal advisor, took me aside and remarked, I still remember, "Young man, you will one day go to the very top of this organization." I very sincerely was not entirely sure what he saw in me, but I was nonetheless glad he made that comment. My management trainee induction started in earnest. I found myself on the director's floor meeting Martin Eson Benjamin, the then marketing director. I remember as if it just happened that he looked at me sternly and asked, "Are you the son of Professor Nsarkoh?" I said I was, and he responded, "Then you have a family reputation to protect, and I will really hold you to high standards." I came to know Martin Eson Benjamin as a stickler for excellence and a very hard-working man who left nothing to chance. He was very proud of the marketing function, and he let it be known, and I was very inspired by him. Unfortunately for me, he was promoted soon after I joined to become managing director of a brewery owned by Unilever at the time, so I did not get to know him too well. It was much later on in life that we reunited on social media. I have never had the opportunity to tell him how inspired we were by him at the time. Dr. Carl Irvin, the technical director during my year of national service, had sat on my interview panel. He was a hard man from Britain, perhaps even a brutal man. But when I called on him at his office, he was delighted and said, "You did very well at the interview, young man. Now excel as an engineer." Within months of my becoming a management trainee, his tour of duty ended and he returned to the UK. Our paths have never crossed since. Till the end of the process, no one ever promised me a great salary. All everyone said is that at Unilever, I will be trained to get to the top of my profession. That was what drove my choice. Yaw Nsarkoh, who in his student days in a confrontation with one of his lecturers had been told will never get a job, had landed a job. All praise to God. Enter Kwame Adai. I was working as a shift manager at the foods factory as part of my management traineeship when Kwame Adai returned from expatriation in India to take up the role of technical director. My direct line manager was Kofi Folson, a chemical engineer to whom I owe much for training me in manufacturing and food technology. During my national service, Kofi Folson gave me a ride to work almost every day, an invaluable help for which I cannot ever say thank you enough. Kwame Adai had done many important jobs in Unilever before becoming technical director. He had been, for example, personnel director and deputy technical director. His reputation was larger than life. In introducing Kwame Adai to us, his predecessor, Dr. Carl Levin, told us, "Kwame Adai is a detonator." We were soon to learn why. Kwame was returning from India, which housed one of Unilever's most revered operations, Hindustan Lever. He had incredibly high world-class performance standards. Physically a diminutive man, he had the energy, determination, and drive of 1,000 giants. In pursuing excellence, Kwame Adai was simply fearless and indefatigable. He was tough, he was challenging, and he could be rough when he needed to be. He held very high standards on integrity. You breached them and you were a goner. His famous 9 a.m. morning reviews with all the engineers was the scene of spitfire accountability. We stood on our feet as he reviewed the quality of production from the previous day, shift by shift, hour by hour. Those were the days. Those indeed were the days. Kwame Adai was a big picture guy who was also deep in the details. He knew what was going on. No one could sell bullshit to Kwame Adai, and he would often say, "Don't mess around." If you promised to deliver something, you did everything in your power to do so. The man was as tough as nails, yet In my experience, there has never been a director more loved by the workforce. We all talked and moaned about Kwame Adai and his pressure to deliver, but we deeply respected him for many things. He was egalitarian in spirit and instinct. He loved walking around the factory floor. Many times he would spend hours talking to shop floor workers. Even as a young and junior engineer then, Kwame Adai would invite me to his office to discuss my trend monitoring reports for the vegetable oils refinery. He was deeply interested in our professional development and he pushed us to excel. Under Kofi Folson's leadership, we upgraded refinery capacity by 25% through process optimization only, unheard of in those days. Put Kwame Adai anywhere people were, and they would soon roar with laughter. He had a funny story for every occasion. This was the tough boss who nonetheless always had people laughing. He was a true Katanga boy, at ease with people. Kwame Adai challenged me and grew me. Sometimes I absolutely hated him for being so demanding, but no one built my confidence and values as a professional as much as Kwame. I still remember some of the Kwame Adaiisms. His constant pitch for eternal vigilance. Him repeating Ashon Kaguli's time is inelastic and question everything. Kwame Adai was an engineer philosopher. Tough as nails though he was on the exterior, in time through strange circumstances, I got to know he had a heart of gold and was very committed to the success of his teams. He just did not verbalize this much. He called me Yaw Nsarkoh the Great. One day, his secretary mistakenly sent me a report Kwame Adai had written about me. Before he rushed back for it, the young cheeky me had read it, and tears welled in my eyes. Kwame had praised me professionally to the skies and predicted in writing all of 3 decades ago that I would go very far in my career. I was stunned. Kwame Adai, the pressure bucket, he loved his people, but like many of our African parents, he showed his love by doing, not saying. He gave me big professional breakthroughs, like sending a very young me to Canada for the North American world-class manufacturing workshop, an experience that changed my professional life by giving me early exposure to what it means to be world-class. That opened my eyes. One day, the driver of Kwesi, then customer service director, came to me and said that once when driving his boss and Kwame Adai, the latter had had a lot of great things to say about me. He said he knew earning those compliments from Kwame would have required lots of hard work, so I should keep doing what I was doing. This incident has stayed with me throughout my career. Organizational logic is not what the organogram says. The drivers and the tea servers and security people and cleaners must receive equal respect because often they know what is going on in the organization even more than the senior managers. Such was Kwame. If he had a tough message for you, he told you to your face. But he would never make you feel you owed him something because he did not even let people know when he supported them. He kept quiet about that, wanting nothing back from anyone. He promoted me to full management in what was most likely a record for the time. When I said thank you, he simply said, "You deserve it." The Bullion Cubes factory story. Once Kwame Adai asked me to come to his office in the morning. At the time, we had just started manufacturing bullion cubes in our Tema factory. The factory was going through teething problems. As I climbed the stairs to the then director's floor, I saw Kwame Adai standing with Mike McGrath, the finance director at the time. Kwame boomed. "That is the young man I was just talking about to the board. Yaw Nsarkoh the Great. I will assign him to the bullion cube factory, and in weeks all the problems will disappear." Huh? What was Kwame Adai doing? I did not know what bullion cubes were. I had never seen a bullion cubes factory, and here he was presenting me as a solution to the problem. Did he want me to fail? He just told me, "I know you have the leadership capability to do it. I will support you." As a young engineer, I went back to my little factory corner, crestfallen and broken, in complete panic. Why had Kwame Adai turned against me this way? Why did he want me disgraced? Why was he setting me up for certain failure? But 2 days after I had prayed incessantly, I went to the factory and called a meeting with the workforce. I had nothing but my notebook and a pen. I confessed to the team that I knew nothing about bullion cubes manufacturing, but I was confident they did. So they should tell me what needed to be done. Impressed that I had shown this vulnerability, they made several suggestions. So I asked why they had not done this in the past if they knew the answers. And the answer they gave me taught me something about the importance of the tolerance of honest failure I never forgot in my career. The workforce believed deeply that if they tried something they had not been directly told by an engineer and it did not work, they would be blamed. I explained that this was not the case, and that I, as their leader, will accept responsibility. I was not really sure why I had said that, but soon something went wrong and I was on trial before their eyes. Trembling, I walked up to Kwame Adai and accepted responsibility, saying I had asked the workforce to try and something relatively minor had gone wrong. He listened quietly and then commended me for taking responsibility and owning up and asked me to go and continue my work. From that day, the mood in the factory changed. Word went round, as it does on shop floors, that the young engineer would stand by them if something went wrong. They wanted me to succeed as a result, and they set about making changes. In weeks, the factory was humming and the problems were gone. I had become a part of organizational folklore. Yaw Nsarkoh had again turned something around. Without any false modesty, not one of the actual engineering solutions came from me. It was all the shop floor implementing what it knew. This has been a feature of my career. People know what to do. Create the climate for them to do what they know, and they will make you and themselves fly. I learned from that incident and have told this story all over the world in the years since. That if you truly respect people as human beings and treat them with dignity, most will die for the cause. But often in organizations, we get intoxicated by hierarchy and then treat people with indignity and are surprised that productivity is low. Human beings want to be treated with dignity everywhere. That is when they thrive. Kwame Adai and my move from engineering to marketing. Back in the day, we had the tradition of the Unilever Managers course. Young managers would be taken to one of the top Accra hotels for a week for a residential course where the senior leaders of the business came to teach us about every aspect of the business. Festus Odimegu, the then marketing director, handled the marketing module that year when I attended this course at Wangara Hotel in Laboni for 2.5 hours. In one of the most energetic and most passionate marketing presentations I have ever seen in my long career, Festus shook us from the crown of our heads to our toenails and the soles of our feet. He was a man who had read nearly every management textbook there was. He knew philosophy and invoked Plato to explain the role of marketing. I was totally blown away by the guy I was meeting for the first time. He made marketing seem attractive to me. It had never been before. So when we got back to the office after the course, I sent a short email to Festus to thank him for his presentation. The next day, he called me to his office. We had a long chat that led to him adopting me as his mentee. He was certain that I would do very well in marketing, and he started a campaign that I should be moved from engineering to marketing. Festus was the kind of man that people did things for just so they could get rid of him. He never stopped when he wanted something done. Until you gave him what he wanted, he could harass you to breaking point. It was not very long when people started to call me to come and meet them because Festus had told them they had to meet me. As fate would have it, Festus ended his tour of duty and returned to Nigeria to become managing director of Heineken there. Kwame Adai had also moved to Malaysia. But Festus had sowed the seed, and in time, the new marketing director, Roy Williamson, invited me for a conversation. Everyone thought I should be delighted to move to marketing, but they were confused that I seemed hesitant and frightened. Unknown to them, my technical director after Kwame Adai left was not happy that I had to leave engineering. He argued that he too needed good talent, and he wobbled me by saying I was doing very well in engineering, so if I left for the marketing role, there would be no return ticket. I panicked. While this was going on, Roy Williamson was also beginning to get impatient with my dithering and indecision. I did not want to disclose to him the pressure I was under from his colleague. What was I to do? Stranded, lost, confused at my absolute nadir, and with my confidence shaken, one late evening I called Kwame Adai. He had moved on from being technical director then. He listened to me patiently as I rambled and waffled. When I was done, he laughed and then said something I have never forgotten. Never fear, Yao. You will succeed. What can go wrong? Accept the job and you may just enjoy it and learn a lot. All my fear deserted me and I accepted the move to marketing. As they say, the rest is history. Roy Williamson, who had initially been frustrated by my indecision, was to become one of my most important supporters. Roy made me a marketer and put his own career on the line to keep me in marketing. I will not explain the reason why. What he did at the time was a risk. I write today to celebrate people, not to denigrate anyone. He became a mentor for life, Kwame Adai. I could recount many more such stories. In time, Yaw Nsarkoh the Great became Professor Yaw Nsarkoh the Great. Kwame Adai always addressed me as such when he saw me. Whenever Unilever issued any new publications on anything related to my field, he would lend me his copy to read. One time, he asked me to lecture the entire technical function, including himself and many accomplished engineers, many years my senior, on oil processing and the biochemistry of vegetable oils. For weeks, I was immersed in books, as this was not a subject that I could claim any expertise in. But that was Kwame Adai, always challenging people to breach new frontiers. Throughout my career, wherever I have been in the world, whenever I have been stuck, I have reached out to him for his wisdom. Even in his retirement, he has always been there for me. And I could add that when I gave a speech in Accra on the 26th of this month, he was there to support me again.
Wow.
Even in his retirement, he has always been there for me. God gives us people on earth as guardian angels. Among mine, professionally, were Kwame Adai and his friends. When we tell our stories in later life, we should always remember that what we achieved is because we stood on the shoulders of giants, and we must never forget them. I am glad that in the evening of my executive career and Unilever career, I am able to say a public thank you to all these people, and that they are still around to hear it. Never one for hogging the limelight, Kwame has kept a low profile in retirement. When I'm down about this Robinson Crusoe society that Ghana has become, I wonder what our politics would have yielded if it was men with the cast of mind and work ethic of Kwame Adai that had made it to the top. Chief of Staff to the President, Kwame Adai, he would have driven implementation in cabinet more than Lee Kuan Yew and Paul Kagame and Deng Xiaoping put together. Or else the ministers will not sleep. What you promise to Kwame Adai, you give to Kwame. The president himself would have had fire on his head if he slacked. Alas, this broken politics of ours has no place for such excellent resources. He's too honest, too professionally disciplined, too inflexible when it comes to upholding high standards, too fearless in holding people accountable. No surprise, we are what we have become. Final words. I write as the moose dictates. All the people I have mentioned are still alive. I am grateful to God for putting these people in my career and life. Without them, I would have gone nowhere in my corporate career. I have never forgotten this. None of them is infallible. Not one is perfect. The perfect human does not exist. My purpose is to thank them in our lifetime, not to deify them. I am not one who ever presents anyone as perfect. I have thanked them for specific contributions to my development, no more. If I can contribute to others in my lifetime, the way Kwame Adai and the others mentioned did to me, my life work would have been done. So help me God. And I might just quickly add, this has been, for me personally, the most difficult to read because you didn't detect it, but I get quite emotional when I talk about this subject. And to my surprise, I wrote this and put it on Facebook, and I actually forgot about it. And it got a reaction that totally surprised me. In fact, I went to China in April, and I walked into a meeting in Boa County. And just as I walked in, they said, "How is Kwame Adai?" I was confused. So I said to the guy, "Well, why do you know Kwame Adai for?" It said, "Your thing came around here. We read it, and we know about it. Say hello to him. He obviously had a big impact on you." But even more than the Chinese reaction was that his daughter, I knew that he had a daughter, I'd never met her, but his daughter called me. No, he sent a message to me that his daughter wanted to talk to me. He didn't say typical Kwame. He didn't say anything. He wrote to me and said when he read what I had written, he was speechless. And he left it at that. That's Kwame, never dramatic. Yeah. But his daughter then called me and said they saw it and took it to their father. And when he read it, he broke down and wept. Kwame died to break down and weep. You have to know the man. And I'll just like to leave it there so I too don't break down.
My goodness. I have listened to this story with rapt attention and such admiration for you. A lot of people in here are saying thank you for honoring these great people that have just helped you. The power of storytelling is that anyone can understand it, no matter their cultural orientation, it doesn't matter what it is about them. They can understand storytelling. And that's what you have done. And so when you go to a meeting in China, they can actually say, "How is Kwame Adai?" By the way, if Mr. Kwame Adai is watching, thank you. And for everyone that helped the great Yaw Nsarkoh, thank you. We need more people like you who are not just waiting to be awarded plaques for being mentors, or given some kind of a name for helping you with the tiniest littlest things. Just the fact that you were there and you guided him. Look what we have now, this treasure trove of knowledge and stories. Guys, we could keep going on and on and on. In Yaw Nsarkoh's letter to himself in this book, Letters of Hope to My Younger Self, Yaw writes about a time where he was in Yangpala, and some of the things he saw there and how that impacted him. So when you see this man here, it is not that, of course, that he had an elite life. He's been to the trenches too, very, very deep, deep corners and trenches. And all of those things have helped to shape Yaw Nsarkoh. Honor where honor is due, guys. This man right here, I think, and yes, I'm a little younger, but I think we cannot let anything happen without documenting these things that he has gone through and the knowledge that he has. Indeed, it's a masterclass. It's a masterclass. And I don't know how to end today's show. I really don't. I am so dumbfounded. Normally, I'm very, very much in control. But today, I just wish we could go on and on and on and on and just picking your brain about so many things. The intentionality of how you're pouring into people's lives is incredibly amazing. And I wanted to thank you publicly for that. Just a fun fact, I believe Yaw was our second interview without hesitation when we sent the email, even though I must say Abba had something to do with that, because he just said, I can never say no to Abba. But the point is, he showed up. He showed up on time. He showed up ready. And we had a fantastic interview. And this is what we're talking about, the mark of excellence and just showing up to the important things in life. Adriana says, I agree to that. He is indeed, yes, he is a movement on his own, a mantra. I could keep going on and on. I can keep going. He is an incredible individual. You are absolutely right. But again, we're inching towards that space where we hear these great people talking and encouraging discourse, because he will go toe to toe with you, if only to push you to think logically and critically, right? But then after that, we go back to our corners. What do we do with all of this? Guys, I encourage you. Today's To My Younger Self is a masterclass on its own. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just saying, send it to a young adult. Encourage them to move forward and listen to the parts that Yao is reading his story, or telling his story rather. Go to that part and listen over and over. Send it as a gift to a young adult. Send it as a gift to anyone you love, really. I, for one, will treasure this, and I don't know how we're going to repackage this and make sure that it reaches even more people. Normally, by the end of the week, we would have had a couple thousand views, but this time we want to make it way more than a couple thousand views, because this is critical for Africa. It's critical for Ghana, that Yaw Nsarkoh and his thoughts. Oh my God, the messages are incredible. Auntie Adeline says, masterclass, no doubt. Kudos, Yaw, kudos. There's so many of them. I am today glad I could join. Yes, and I'm glad you could join too. There is just so much here, going on. And I you guys know I can talk. I can go on and on and on. Yaw is the epitome of the word smart. Yes, he is. He's a legend's legend. That's different, right? You're not only a legend, you're a legend's legend. There is so much inside of him. Honestly, for me, I just want to put a camera in front of his face and just sit and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then we'll let nature take its course, because who knows, 20 years down the line, some young adult, somebody in management, somebody in leadership will find those conversations and do something with it. That's what we want. That's the power of storytelling. I'm going to stop dilly-dallying, because we did ask for 45 minutes from the legendary Yaw Nsarkoh. We got an hour, 47 minutes and counting. And so today we will not be reading our cue cards as we normally do, but you guys know what to do. We're always telling you, patronize Africa, put your heart and your money, put your mind and your money where your heart is, right? So just please, as much as you can, even if you're living in the diaspora and you have to go to an African shop and it's a little expensive, do that. Patronize Africa. And normally we would give you a list of people that we've patronized and we know and we trust. But listen, even if it's, I don't know, sugar cane you bought on the wayside, that's you making sure your money goes back into Africa. Please do it, because you don't know the number of people you're helping socioeconomically. Thank you to all of you, those of you who donate on a monthly basis. We want to say thank you, of course, to Auntie Araba. Thank you so much for not only your donations, but for your incredible support. Indeed, when I write my letter, I consider Yaw's last story an honor letter. When I write my honor letter, definitely, Auntie Araba, you will be in that call up. Of course, Auntie Jane Fiorito, Auntie Rose Machayo, Auntie B. I have a lot of aunties and uncles. Of course, the incredible Mr. Emmanuel Deku. Thank you for being our major sponsor in this walk. God bless you so much. Of Uplands Group Real Estate, based in North Carolina. Thank you so much. And so for those of you who are looking for real estate opportunities, please, the numbers are all there. Do not hesitate to reach out to Mr. Emmanuel Deku. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us today. It has been wonderful. I don't know what to say. I am so speechless right now. Everybody who knows Zoe knows I don't do this. This is it's a lot. And I just need time to sit with it for a long, long, long time. I will also tell you to please go get this book on Amazon and of course on Book Nook. There's just so many powerful, powerful nuggets and powerful stories. This is our contribution to society. This is us saying we can always go back and grab the good. Always, always. And we say that Africans don't like to help each other. It's a lie. It's a lie. I don't know who started to perpetrate that. I don't know who said to us that we don't like to help each other. If this book proves anything at all, is that Africans are ready. We want to give knowledge to the people that are ready to receive it. So please, 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 I'm going to jump off my soapbox now. But yes, he is absolutely inspiring. My regards to your friend, Professor Kwame Karikari. Okay, great men flock together. I know the comments are going to keep coming. And when we have time, we will send the link back to Yao so he can watch it in his own time and then respond to all of you appropriately, because I know he would like to do that. That's just who Yao is. Yao, oh my God. Thank you. God bless you. I look forward to more of this. I think we need it. The youth needs it. We need a charge, something to make us care again, because I think we stopped caring, and that's the danger that we're in now. We stopped caring. I'll stop now. I don't know. We're just going to end. So what would be your last, I don't know, nugget for us?
Thank you to everybody. I've been very encouraged by your comments. I was reading them as the show went on. And to thank you again to Zoe and to Abba. Whenever they've invited me to do something, I'm not sure what I'm going to say, but they do encourage you and guide you. And so you do end up with something to say. And in them, something that I've now adopted since I went to China, especially, I think it was at the back, but I never really fully believed it, is that everything that happens in life happens for a reason. The Chinese like to say they don't fight nature. They accept what happens and they move from there. And myself realized that since I started to really live like that, I'm able to process life much more easily. But I accept reality. This is the reality, and then from there, what can we do about it? So I wish all of you very, very well. I actually just thought I was coming to do a reading. I had no sense that it would be as emotionally involving for me as it was. Thank you for the opportunity.
Wow. Thank you so much. Guys, let's just go out there and make life a masterpiece and just make like the Chinese and respect nature and follow the course of nature. If we do that, we will be so much better. Please don't go out, even though we're going to be playing. I need one-on-one with you, so please don't go. All right, guys, my name is Zoe Baraka. Of course, the show is To My Younger Self. Today, we've taken so much of your time, but we thank you for sticking in there with us. This tells you that we're ready. The youth is ready. Africa is ready. Ghana is ready. And we're going to be doing some incredible things. We'll see you next week. Enjoy your week. Do your best to be your best, really. All right? See ya. Bye.
Kaja Israel, kaba Egypt, kaja Ethiopia, kaja Sudan, waja shong. Kaja Ikushima, you know, wani me kona me waja shong. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, you know, waja shong. Waja jage, waja shong. Sumanguru, you know what you're showing. Manchester, no Sumanguru, you know what you're showing.